Welcome back to the Crushing Iron podcast. I am the age grouper Mike. I'm here with Coach Robbie. And
Hey.
What's up, buddy?
What's up, man?
Today we're going to get into, we both just did Wisconsin, Ironman Wisconsin, and it's fresh in our minds, and we're going to do a course breakdown on some of the things we thought we did right, did wrong, some things we wish we would have done differently, and just kind of analyze the course in general. So if you're thinking about doing it, maybe this will give you a good background for it. So, all right, man. This is my second time doing Wisconsin, and there's something magical to me about race morning and that swim up in the transition up in the helix, and then just the energy down by the water with all the crowd there.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, I was there to witness your first attempt, and that's actually the first Ironman I spectated first and then did second. I've usually done it in reverse. I knew as soon as I was there race morning and feeling the energy and the, Wisconsin being one of the very last, maybe 2 or 3 actual mass start swims left that aren't either a time trial fashion or a wave start, rolling start rather. It was very exciting. Walking down the helix was, they tell you it's going to be a lot of people, and then you get there and you're like, shit, there's like 50,000 people here to watch the swim.
Yeah.
It's insane. It is by far the most spectator friendly, supported overall race. Forget Ironman, just overall race that I've ever been to.
And the swim. It kind of gives me chills to think about it because I don't know about 50,000 at that part, but there's probably 15 to 20,000 there, it seems like. And I've spectated it as well and tried to navigate that crowd up through the helix and on top, even on the top deck, and it's just a massive, it's like, a big, I guess it's a hotel, convention center, and then they have a roof. It's kind of a green garden rooftop.
Yeah.
And there's people lined up. Like, I've been up there to watch, and they're 5 or 6 deep all the way, and it's probably, I don't want to say 100 yards, but it's probably 100 yards or close to it.
Oh, easy.
Wide?
Yeah.
So the energy at the swim is unbelievable, and my first thought always when I tell people about if they're doing that race is to get down there early because it jams up and people get backed up trying to get in the water, and even though they let you in the water 20 minutes early?
I think it's 20 to 25 minutes early. Yeah,
and I think we went in a good 15 minutes early, right?
Yeah, we went in, I think maybe closer to 10. I think the pro women had just gone. It was a pro women only race this last year, and we went in the water right after they did, and so that was about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Which is still a long time.
I know a lot of people who have been caught on shore when the race starts because it does bottleneck at the water down there, and it does take a little while to get everybody in. Obviously, I like getting in there. The first time I got in there right away, and this time I was pretty close to right after they started. And for me, it's good. It's floating around in your wetsuit isn't that hard, and it's a great opportunity to loosen up in the water and get acclimated to the temperature and the feeling, and kind of get some of that pre-race energy, anxiety out of your body. So that works out great for me. I mean, we went in there and I had a plan I've started both years. There's a ski ramp right in the middle of the start zone, and I've started right by that both times, and I don't even know where you started this year. Where did you end up starting?
I was actually just thinking about that as you were talking. I think I started a little bit left of the ski ramp.
Uh-huh.
It's funny. You look at it from above. You look at it in the pre-swim, and you're like, oh, I'm going to start here. I'm going to start there. And then you get in the water, and I would say the length of people as far as the line goes, probably 300 meters. I mean, it's a long, long way from shore all the way to I think that corner Roca swim buoy where a lot of people were jammed up at, that seemed to be the straight buoy line.
Yeah.
And so I think I just kind of found a spot that was just not congested. and just say, you know what, I'm just going to stay here. I don't have to fight to get up to the front of the line. I can start my swim out with nobody in front of me. I can float on my back. I can chill for a little bit, do a little bit of reflection, take some good strokes, and it's going to have absolutely no bearing time wise on how I finish my race, but it'll allow me to at least start comfortably with not that many people around to where I can just swim my own race instead of swimming somebody else's.
Yeah, I think that is the big question for a lot of people is where they're going to start because if you're not a good swimmer, they mostly, like you said, it's 300 meters wide in the front row of that mass of people, and then it probably goes back another 50 meters. It's kind of a big rectangle of people, and most people that are slow swimmers just decide to start in the back or the far right over by the shoreline and just take the extra distance or take the extra time. But the reality is it is congested for the first 200 to 300 meters, and it's pretty bad. Unless you're, and I didn't have the confidence in myself to go out hard because that would make a huge difference if you're ready to go out hard in that situation and get ahead of, say, 80 to 85% of the people. That would really clean up your race, and that's really the only way to have a fast swim up there. You can't screw around with warming up, I don't think, because if you let people get in front of you, then you're just into a congested mess.
Yep. Yeah, I never start out fast. I'll start out with a little decent tempo effort. I mean, I usually honestly I'll try to find somebody close to me um, that looks like, and of course looks are always deceiving, especially in triathlon,
Yeah.
that might be fast. But I mean, generally speaking, if you can find a dude in a Speedo wearing some Swede goggles, he's fast. If you don't know what Swede goggles are, they're the old school goggles with no rubber, no rim, just straight up plastic with string that holds the string as it replaces what the nose piece is. You see somebody like that, and you're like, yeah, he's probably pretty strong. And so I usually try to find somebody fairly quickly who goes out hard, and that's when I do the majority of my drafting is the first 500. Let somebody else go out really, really hard. Let me cover in behind them. Sight, make sure I'm at least going generally the same direction. But then to pace off somebody age group wise for 2.4 is really, really hard to find somebody. People fade, people go out too fast, people can't sight very well, and so I usually stick on somebody's hips or right in somebody's feet until around the 500 to 600 mark. And then I'll just kind of decide to kind of go on my own.
Okay, so that first leg goes out, I think, roughly 1,000 meters before you turn left, and it's all a counterclockwise, or counterclockwise swim.
Hmm.
So the buoys are on your left the whole way, and you turn left at that first buoy, and I mean we tried to go in early, even the day before, and try to pick out a sight marker on that first leg, and we thought we had one, but I have to say that once I got going, I couldn't even see what we were trying to find.
I'm the same here. I struggled mightily, and I'm usually very strong at sighting, but I struggled to see even the next buoy, whether it was the glare off the water or some of the boats. You're splashing in front of me. Yeah, I struggled. I struggled pretty hard. I think maybe even twice. I stopped briefly and did a little breaststroke bob just to kind of be like, all right, let me make sure I get my bearing to make sure I'm not veering off into the middle of the lake.
Yeah, and that is a very real possibility. So you turn left at 1,000 meters, and then it's about 300 meters or something like that before you turn left again. So when you turn left, I think you're swimming right into the sun on that short leg. At least that day it was super glary to me.
Yeah, same here.
And then you turn left again, and that's the long leg, and that one's probably close to 2,000.
Oh, it's every bit. It's more than that.
Is it?
It seemed like the longest stretch of swimming. Honestly, to me, it seemed longer than the Louisville stretch.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the distance difference is, but it seemed like it went for a bit. I'm not sure if that's just kind of your mind had you going back to where you started, which in fact you go at least I would say 500 meters past, then you turn and come back. Um, but no, I would say it's at least, I mean, you're looking at 4,400 yards. So if you go out 1,000 corner three, you're still looking at 3,000 coming back. Um, and so I would probably say it's probably every bit of 2,000 going back with 1,000 back in. But it seemed never ending on the way back.
Yeah. Now, just to give perspective here, you were under an hour, right?
Yep, I was 59:13, which was good enough for 51st, I think, overall out of the water, which is one of my higher placings overall coming out of the water for a swim.
Yeah, that's strong. And I think I was at 113 or 114, which was pretty good for me. And I felt really good on that swim. But again, I think the huge part is I would hate to see a Garmin map of my swim path because, again, I'm sure it's just a zigzag all over the place because as a right side breather, which you are too, right? Did you swim on the inside of the buoys on that long leg?
Nope. I think a couple of them I did, and that was just to kind of get away from some of the packs that had kind of formed. Because that's something you will find on the way back is people do intentionally try to stay with a pack or a group of swimmers, even up to almost to their own demise sometimes, thinking that the person is going. I mean, I remember I chose to sight off this one guy, and about 10 meters later, I looked up and I was like, this dude's heading out to, I don't know what he's doing. I mean, he's definitely maybe going for a 5-miler, but I was like, man, I'm just gonna peel off and swim my own race. He was a faster swimmer than me. That's why I was trying to hop on his hip, and he was probably a good maybe 5 to 6 seconds per 100 faster than me, and had a great stroke. Just didn't. And I remember seeing him at the buoy, at the corner buoy coming back in, and we were exactly the same pace. So I knew I was in good shape and I had swam well because I knew he's much faster than me, and having not sighted off of him, I knew that he had done some extra distance, and to try to keep pace with him. And because keeping pace for 2.4 is one thing, keeping pace for 2.5 or 2.6 is another.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me going back in was difficult to see, but a beautiful swim course. And if you're afraid of mass start swims, that's the one to go to, in my opinion, just because how spread out it is, how cool the water felt, getting in the water 10 minutes before to sit there and kind of calm your nerves, let the water seep into your wetsuit, take a few strokes, make sure your goggles aren't leaking, all those little things you freak out about, and then just kind of find a safe zone, or sit back in the third and fifth row and let people go in front of you. It's I would say it's one of the most beginner friendly mass start of the 4 that are probably left.
Uh-huh. And that might be because of the width of the start, maybe? Or...
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And the fact they let you get in the water so early.
Yeah.
I think that should be a prerequisite for all events, is that they allow you to get in the water beforehand, but that's just logistically, that's not possible for a lot of events.
Well, you're right. And 2 things I want to get to, or just say before that we go to the bike. One thing I did on the way out was try to soak it in a little bit, the crowd, because as a right breather, I kept looking up at that mass of people there. You can hear them vaguely, occasionally, and it was really a nice sight to sort of calm my nerves and just really let me feel like I was doing a big Ironman race. And on the back leg, I don't know if this happened to you, but man, I think that first half of the swim has yellow buoys, and then they turn to orange for the second.
Yes. Yep.
And on that back leg that seemed to go forever, I started seeing it because the turn buoy's red, which is similar, obviously, in color to the orange. And I bet I saw at least five orange buoys that I thought were the turn buoy, and I would be like, yes, finally.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
And then I get to it, and it would be orange.
Yep.
Kept happening.
I hate the fact that they use red and orange, because in the water with the glare and the glisten of the water, they look almost the exact same. And then 2, whoever decides to put red and orange kayaks in the water should be fired.
I don't know.
You should or yellow life vests.
Yeah.
You should have to wear blue or something that's not even remotely a color to any of your buoys because all you're doing is trying to get a glimpse. And there's probably many times like, oh, hey, here I go, here it's a dude in a vest. Oh, it's a dude in a kayak. Oh, it's yeah, somebody needs to lose their job over that.
That's funny. That reminds me real quick that I did a race once, and I'm sure this happens all the time, but the buoys were yellow and our swim caps were yellow. I mean, you talk about a complete fucking mind game, man. When I'm in the back looking up at about a 500 yellow swim caps thinking they're all buoys. Anyway, so all right, so you get out of the bike, run up the helix, and we can get into that some other time. But the helix is pretty cool. Running out, and there's tons of people cheering you on. You go in and you change, you come out on the bike, and then ride out along the lake for a little while through a bike path, and then you get sort of back into the meat of the course. And we drove it the day before. What are your thoughts on the first part of the course, the stick, which is about 15 miles roughly right out to the main loop?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I had heard, so many things about the Ironman course, the new massive hill that was like Everest but only shorter, and there were honestly, there were a lot of things I underestimated about the course. I underestimated the road conditions. They weren't terrible. I wouldn't say they were favorable. The wind, I think I definitely underestimated. And then it is by far the most technical course I've ever done, easily.
Yeah.
And I'm not Peter Sagan by any means on the bike. And having come from riding your trainer pretty much exclusively for the lead up. I'm an average bike handler, but I lost minutes on that course.
Yeah.
But it was relentless. It was everything people said, and which you normally don't believe.
Yeah.
because usually people overdo it, but it was extremely difficult. You had to think the entire time, which is probably the only saving grace, is that you're not. I feel like the time goes by a little bit faster, just because you're always thinking, you're always changing, you're sitting up, you're back in your aero bar, you're shifting from the big gear to the small gear, you're going downhill, you're going uphill, you're making a turn, you're going left. I would be interesting to find out if it has the most amount of turns per 112 of any of the other Ironman courses, because I would think it's got to.
Yeah, maybe other than Woodlands this year. I mean, because I don't know I have no idea how many there were, but it does seem. Yeah, I mean that's a great explanation of it, really. I mean, there's not a whole lot more you can say except that even driving it the day before, and I've already done the race once, so I remembered it vaguely. And they changed the course this year a little bit, and for me, they took out two of the so-called big hills, but I think it felt a little tougher to me this year, and I don't know if that's real or just because I wasn't in as good a shape or what the deal was, but I just can't express how many turns you take or how many times you come out of a corner and just look down the road and see another hill coming at you. It and they're not massive. They always seem bigger from a distance, but it's just incredible that it's like you kind of just start laughing after a while because, yeah.
I mean, it's one of the. Well, I think you and I laughed about it the day before, but it's like, oh, you'd be going down the stretch, you'd make a right turn, you'd go 2 miles, and the hills are continuous, and you're like, we get to turn left, no hill,
Yeah.
and you turn left, and there's another freaking hill. I mean, it's just like there was no getting away from it, and if anything, it hurt you with the turns because every time you got it downhill, it was technical, and you knew there was a turn coming. And you had to be. I mean, there was no bombing. There was not a single. I mean, there were some bomb descents, but they weren't that long.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no like the one they took out at Louisville. There was no ascent and descent like that, where you could just take your hands off the brakes and bomb for what feels like 7 or 8 minutes. You know, it was bomb straight down at 50 and then get ready to turn. And then as soon as you get up, guess what? You're going to take a right and then you're going to go straight uphill.
Yeah.
You know, it was by far the hardest bike course I have ever done.
Yeah. And then there was one spot that you pointed this out to me the day before. You're like, man, that's a really good bomb hill, but they put an aid station right at the bottom of it. So it's
Yeah,
like you couldn't
what
even.
the heck, man? There was a stop sign and an aid station. I think it was actually maybe no, it wasn't special needs. I think we stopped there.
Yeah.
And used we were the first ones to christen that porta john. For those of you who stopped at that aid station,
Yeah.
we christened it the day before. We did a little quality assurance check, and yeah, I was like, why would you put that there? You know, like put the aid stations on the uphills, put the special needs on an uphill. You know, like don't put it on a freaking downhill where you're like, thank God. And that was that stretch of road too, where it was very dicey.
Yeah.
The road was just awful. And that was another part of it that really affected my race poorly, and it's totally my fault. Was just from spending so much time on the trainer with the new baby and Allie being pregnant and everything is I just kind of knew that that's what I was going to get in for. And the amount of extra energy and effort it takes you to hold your line and the bumps and the bumps and the bumps and the bumps and the relentless just kind of getting jarred here and there. You know, then you add the wind, and it's not like you can't produce power, but you can't fully prepare for it if you don't experience it. Not so much if you don't train for it, but you got to experience it. And I hadn't experienced it, and it jarred me pretty good, and that was something that I think really affected my bike leg.
Yeah. I could see how that would be true. I mean, that's the one. Yeah, you can build your straight ahead power, but your body doesn't necessarily get used to it. I saw a video or somebody talking about the other day weightlifting, how people use machines, and obviously that thing is completely controlled. And then people are like, well, you need to do free weights and do bench press on free weights, where because you have to really balance out your body and get used to balancing it. But now the thing is, they've got these things called shakers or whatever that they put on the end of a barbell that actually shakes, and they're weighted, and it makes it even harder to keep that stabilized. So it's kind of a similar concept, I think, with riding. If you don't have to deal with any conditions or bumps or shifting your body around. And yeah, so then you come back in, you finally get out of that mess, the 2 loops, and come back home, and then you come back along. I mean, it's just a beautiful sight coming in along the lake. You see the helix, you're done, and then you get back up to the helix, drop off your bike. You don't have to get anywhere near where it was racked before. It's just kind of cool, and you just jump right in transition and then run out.
Well, I mean that for you maybe. I mean you had prime real estate. I don't even think you could justify yours as doing the full 140.6. You had such a sweet spot for your transition.
My transition bike, my bike was actually at mile 1 of the bike. It was so fun.
Yeah, I thought I saw that, and I knew for the all world athletes, you actually got a golf cart escort to the second aid station on the run. So I mean, hey, whatever. I mean, it's if you want to call yourself an Ironman, that's cool, but the rest of us know the real story.
That's a great one. But really, I remember coming in the first time I did it, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta run and you just come right up that helix and then just literally drop your bike right there. It's pretty cool.
And you don't care if it smacks I mean, for the 364 days before the race, if there's a big gust of wind, you stop, you get off, and you check to see if a speck of wood chipped your carbon frame, and you dust it and clean it. You don't want people touching it after you ride 112 miles and spill goo and sugary drink and probably piss on it. You get off the bike and you could honestly care less if it falls over and breaks in half.
Yeah, I thought about throwing mine in a lake more than once. But anyway, so we get out on the run. What was your feeling coming out of that transition up that little hill to go down, actually around the Capitol and then down State Street? What were you reflecting on at that point, or were you?
I can't believe I signed up for this shit again.
Really?
Yeah, no lie. no lie. That's exactly what I was thinking. And that makes me feel a little bit better. I was reading Jan Frodeno's interview after Kona that he won again, and he talked about that he thinks and debates about quitting almost every race.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that I do as well. You always think of an excuse, uh, but then he goes on to talk about some other things. We can probably touch on that on another podcast about the mental toughness it takes and the mental wars and battles you go through. But I remember getting off and being like, man, I had two flats on the bike. My goal's probably shot. Um, and I took off like a bat out of hell. I
Yeah.
felt good. But I was thinking to myself, man, I can't believe I signed up for this shit again.
Yeah.
Because 26 seemed like a long time. But after like a half mile, it was apparent that the crowd support and spectator support was going to be on a completely different level than any other race I'd ever been at.
Mm-hmm. That's I keep talking about that, and that's why I struggle with races like Muncie or other kind of races that are sort of out in the country the whole time and there's no support. I really, really feed off of spectators, and it's not like I interact with them the whole way or whatever, but it's just that people energy that's around. And when you come out of T2 at Wisconsin, run up to the Capitol, I mean the Capitol is bustling already, and then you make that turn to circle the Capitol and go down that first leg of State Street, and people are everywhere.
Yeah.
It's sensational. I mean, it was a beautiful day, and that's always my biggest worry, is not for my sake, but for the spectator's sake. I want it to be a nice 70 to 80 degree day, so they're going to be out.
Oh, it was perfect weather. I mean,
Yeah.
it was. You would have thought that the Badgers had just got done playing a Final Four game and they won. Everybody went out on the streets and was partying afterwards. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how deep. And you can't even explain it to people. It's like the Louisville finish line,
Mm-hmm.
just extended by like 5 miles in both directions.
Yeah, it's true. I was amazed the first, because you go down State Street for I think 2 blocks, and that of course is packed, and then you duck into some neighborhoods and come around and go towards campus, and there is just people everywhere. It's not like a State Street when you get out there, but then you go back around mile 6 of the first loop, you go back up the bottom of State Street, and this year it was different than the one I did it a few years in 13. It was the whole, I think it was about 5 or 6 blocks. It's probably half a mile up State Street, and it was just jammed both ways up and down. And that's just a perfect energy situation right in the middle of the loop. So you kind of go back up State Street and come back down, and then you run out along the lake, which is traditional triathlon kind of running stuff where it's a bike path and you go out and there's not a whole lot of people there, but there was still really random groups of people that the minute you started falling asleep they would yell at you or something.
Yeah. Well, what was your least favorite part of the run course?
Well, the first time I did it, it was that out what I was just talking about. It was sort of this out and back on a bike path thing. It was probably a mile and a half or something like that total, and it I don't know, but for some reason this year there was more people out there or something. It didn't seem as long to me, but then right after that, I don't know. I think my least favorite part was just a short stretch coming back up around Camp Randall. I mean, there's a hill there, and then you kind of run back through the um, Camp Randall parking lot and down that steep little drop hill that we were talking about, and then
Yeah.
right after that, there's kind of I don't know. I mean, I really don't have other than the fact that it hurt so bad. I don't remember like an awful section of that run for me. Maybe that little stretch along that parking lot. I don't know. It's hard to explain. What about you? Do you have something clear?
Yeah, I would say two things. One is that they say downhill's all your friends. Well, no, it's not. Not on the back half of your marathon. That little downhill coming back on the stadium was something I didn't appreciate. And then probably the only other one was the back half of the trail coming back on the second loop. Was there weren't a lot of spectators, but there were a lot of college students running that would like blitz past me like I was walking.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and that was definitely probably my least favorite part. I'm like, who is coming behind me? You just storm this course like a bat out of hell.
Yeah.
And then I'd see some 18-year-old girl in Lululemon crushing it, listening to Beyonce, and I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
That's just really great.
Pigtails bobbing. Yeah, that was kind
exactly.
of beautiful. Makeup on and the whole 9 yards. And yeah, that was funny. That did happen a lot. It seemed like there's a lot of college activity going on around there because you run right through the campus, and it's all beautiful. Actually, that was bad, but it was also kind of a great part because it was super shady in there, and it was like I said, the temperature was nice, but it was still sunny. So that was a really nice part for me too. But other than that, there's the hill makeup on that course. And I forgot there about mile 5, I think it was, is Observatory Hill, and you come through the bike path and make a turn up this little road, and next thing you know, you're facing that first big climb, on there. It's not massive, but it feels massive. And then it kind of crests, and then you're like, yeah, I'm done. And then there's another one. And then you kind of
it's like, terrible.
Yeah, and then
they call it observatory, I think, because you're on it so long, you have so much time to observe.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt like. I was like, man, no one calls Observatory Hill. I'm on this thing forever.
Yeah.
Walking. I'm just gonna soak it in and get my observing in.
Yeah. You can. It's a beautiful view up there if you look back. So you get up that first one, then there's that second one. You're like, man, all right, I'm up. And then you go down a ways, and then there's one more. So there's like a three-pronged hill section right there that is not fun. But after that, it's State Street, and then it's kind of flat back. And then anything up State Street, even though it's a little bit of a climb, is nothing because you're just jazzed both times.
Yeah, you know what's coming and you can hear it, and then that's kind of the saving grace is you can hear all the noise and kind of underswell of spectators.
Yeah, it's kind of a little buzz. And once you get to the top of State Street, that last section, then you see the Capitol staring you right in the face. You have 1, 2.5 blocks left to kind of curl around and then go down the finishing chute. And that from the beginning of State Street to the finish line is just awesome for me. Once I hit that spot, last time I was dying. I was trying to break 12 hours, and this year I knew I had that in the bag, so I just sort of soaked it in the whole way up there, and it was both times were amazing. But I just loved when I came around the Capitol and then entered the finisher chute. Right when I got to the carpet, my water bottle popped out of my belt. And there's just tons of people, man. I was shocked actually because I had to stop and look, and there was just probably 12 people deep on both sides of me screaming at me, and I was alone. And I thought briefly about leaving that bottle on the carpet because I couldn't turn around. It was really hard.
Yeah.
And I said no, and everybody started laughing and screaming, and I kind of creaked back to about 3 steps to pick up my bottle, and I leaned down and I barely could reach it, and I picked it up, and the crowd went wild. It was the weirdest sports moment of my life. That picking up a water bottle brought tons of people to their feet.
Hey, man. Yeah, it's great. That's why the sport's so awesome. It's the little things. That's kind of like a couple years ago when I did Louisville. I was coming into the finish, and I took the turn to go to lap 3 instead of going down the finish chute. And everybody's like, "Oh no, you're done." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I'm finished." Yeah, uproar. Yeah, it was I think I had kind of a little bit of the same circumstance you did the first year you did it. I was my PR is like 10:34. I knew I wasn't going to get that, but I really wanted to go under 10:40. And so I was kind of booking it, and I soaked it in, but definitely not as much as I would have liked. I ended up squeezing in at 10:39:46, and I did, hindsight, I guess you got to pick one or the other. I could have picked soaking in that last block and a half, where I could have had to sprint to the finish to make it under 10:40, or I could have sprinted the last half of the block and had enough cushion to where I could stop there towards the end of the finishing chute and say hi to Mom and Allie and Hayden and give him a little kiss on the forehead, and then strut its way in. So, I had to pick one or the other. Obviously, I think I picked the right one, but one of these days I'm going to go back and soak in the full experience.
Yeah, and what even is that really? I mean, I say I did that, and I guess it was just that my head wasn't down or whatever, and I was just kind of at a more comfortable pace. And it is a different feeling, but I don't know. I've never been able to yet get into that finisher chute and really just kind of like, how they say soak it in. I mean, I've seen a lot of people just walk the whole way. And
What do you mean soak it in? They'd have security escort you out of the finishing chute this year.
That's right. Yeah, because
I'm not sure what world you're living in, Mister. I don't like to hog the limelight.
Yeah.
I think there's probably 2,000 pictures of you on finisher pics that people are going to have you photobombing their finish that you just sat there in all of your glory.
That was a total douche move on my part. But so what happened was I did finish, and they caught me, and I had my arm around both these ladies, and they're like, "Good job, you doing all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine, fine." We kept walking, and she goes, "Aren't you even going to wave to the camera?" And I said, "Where's the camera?" And she sort of pointed up, but we had already gone under it. So I had been through the camera once, and then I took about 5 steps back, and I stood there, and I waved, and I said hi to my dad because I knew he was watching at home. But he had already turned it off by then, evidently. And so I stepped back into the camera and looked right up at it, and I got a lot of people texting me about that. And what
I'm sure somewhere.
Blast.
Exactly. Man, if I really dug into the rules, I'm pretty sure I can get you a DQ out of that. You're not allowed to cross the finish line twice. You're not allowed to re-enter the course after you finish. Something. Finishing chute obstruction. Something where I could easily get you a DQ out of that if I really worked hard enough at it.
Yeah. My results aren't even on there now. No, I'm just kidding. She did say to me, she's like, "All right, that's enough," and pulled me through again.
Yeah, like you're never gonna know. The Mike Terrali, the guy who finished Ironman Wisconsin 2016, twice. Yeah, that's what they're gonna say about you.
There's gonna be a rule in there, like the fine print somewhere, the Mike Terrali rule. No stepping back into the camera zone.
What if they went back and edited your time? We will take your slowest of the 2 times. Mike Terrali finishes in 12 hours and 1 minute.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I know you got to get going. So that wraps up the course review for Ironman Wisconsin. We will get into some more of these later. If you know any race directors or Facebook group operators that would like to discuss their course, we'd love to have them on. They can email us at crushingiron@gmail.com, and we will do a 3-way, 4-way, whatever it takes.
Yeah. The only 3-way that's not frowned upon. I think that's a good way to start. And feel free to email us any questions you have or topics you want us to address in upcoming podcasts. We'll be happy to address those and shoot at you an email or a message letting you know that we're going to talk about them on the next podcast. That way you can get your answers.
Sounds good, man. All right, well, have a great day.
You too. See ya. Bye.